typical disgusting display.
Oh, tonight we got 'em. Goldy, the Sulk, and JC.
The typical disgusting display. And it starts right now.
Oh, welcome back to the 100th episode of A Typical Disgusting Display, a podcast for writers by writers who hate writing. And we want to thank you, friends, for listening last week to JC and our guest hosts. And if you started listening last Monday morning, you should be just finishing up right about now. So we appreciate your patronage.
First joke of the day.
Honestly,
well, no one
Goldy,
else got to speak in my defense.
there
I mean,
we
he
go.
just from the jump has monopolized everything.
It's funny. JC always says Goldy freaks out if he doesn't get it. I'm like, no, he doesn't. But there he is.
I don't freak out.
Yeah,
It's just
okay.
we've
it
done
was a little bit of
100
a
of
freak
these
out.
now, and it's
Yeah, and
for some reason you get to speak first every time. We never voted on this, but you get to go. Welcome back. Well, I'd like maybe once
I'm the
once
guiding
I would like to say
hand.
maybe once I would like to welcome everyone back.
So of the 100
Welcome
episodes,
back, everyone.
the second joke of the
Good to
day.
see
Second
you.
joke of the day. See, that's funny. But of 100 episodes, I'd say you have first joke of the day maybe 92 times, but somehow not
Maybe
enough.
more.
Not
Well,
enough
you
for you.
railroaded us from the beginning of each episode with your welcome back, and so I got to do something to get on everyone's radar.
Yeah, you're there. You're on everyone's radar. But Goldy, let's talk for a little bit about the guest hosting show, because I thought they did a great job.
Yes.
Thank you to Mike Scully and Aaron Lee, who were excellent. And Aaron pointed out rightly that we always praise Mike Scully, and we always will. So
Yes.
let's praise him twice and Aaron only once. But they were both awesome.
And John Viner.
And Viner,
was
came on
amazing.
as a guest, and he had great stories. He was really funny, and of
Very
course,
charming.
he's got the voice.
Look, here's what I'd say about the episode.
Yes,
They found their footing.
they did.
I mean, very quickly.
I think Goldy and I were secretly hoping that they would take it away from us. They would just be like,
I wouldn't let that
we're
happen.
still going. But a couple of corrections. First of all, it was nice of Viner to bring up Goldy, your very funny masturbation joke, but he mangled it.
Yes.
He got the wording wrong. So Goldy, I would
And I
like to give
still
you the
laughed.
opportunity to correct, because it's funnier the way
Yes.
you do
Okay.
it. So I'd love to hear it.
I'd also like to point out this is a joke from maybe around 2008.
Right.
Yes.
right,
Not a
right.
joke I wrote recently and,
No, but
and
it's-
around town performing. It's not
very
something I've
funny.
said on stage in
You've said it to
15
me.
years. But the joke was, back then, how gay is masturbation? I mean, you just jerked off a guy and you both seem to enjoy it. Might want to think about who you are.
I was missing Viner saying, and you both seem to enjoy it, which is just a great capper to that. And also, Goldy, a bone to pick with you, because you sent in a question, which we both did, which I think was very helpful. But you teed up John Viner for one of my stand-up jokes. I mean, he's great at it. I mean, his Michael McDonald impersonation is very funny. But that was my terrible stand-up joke, where I remember I'd get up and say, it's celebrity cold and flu season. And then I would imitate like 4 celebrities.
Who else would you do?
It's funny. I was trying to think of that for this exact moment. And the only other celebrity I could remember impersonating sneezing besides Michael McDonald was the huge celebrity that all of the kids are talking about, Neil Sedaka.
Oh, God.
There are certain things between you and Viner that always felt like shared work. That I felt like you were always in the same neighborhood of doing that impression back and forth. And
Totally.
I apologize, but I didn't.
You don't have to. It set him up, because honestly, his Michael McDonald is much better than mine. So it was funnier hearing him do it. But then John could have mentioned, hey, this was Alex.
I don't think he remembers.
No, he didn't.
So I'm going to ombudsman Viner a little bit here.
Yes,
and it's not that he
He's our
didn't
buddy.
get this wrong. There was a little bit of a glossing over of something that is very funny,
Okay.
Yes.
which is he mentioned oh, I had been in a commercial and the money was starting to run out.
Yes.
So the commercial he had been in was he was kind of loosely the spokes guy for Florida orange juice.
Yes.
Oh.
And it was a national campaign, and he was very good in it. But he
worked with a chimpanzee.
Oh.
So he was in this commercial, and then it was like they weren't using it as much, I guess. They weren't running it as much, or they shifted away. The chimpanzee was now the star of the ads. I don't remember what it was.
Right.
But in any case, there was a very funny story where Viner went to a screening of the documentary The Lost Boys. Do you remember what that was?
The
The
documentary.
Sudan, the people from Sudan, right? Who were orphaned and then had to walk across the desert to freedom or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Viner goes to the screening, and one or maybe a few of the Lost Boys were there and recognized him from this orange juice commercial. And we're like, oh my God, the orange juice guy. And they were really happy, whatever. And I wasn't privy to the conversation, but whatever happened, like Viner started shifting the conversation toward like, yeah, well, they're not using me as much anymore and the ads aren't working. And within 5 minutes, one of the Lost Boys was consoling Viner about his career and going like, it's going to be okay, man. I'm sorry you're going through that. At a screening of The Lost Boy.
Oh my God.
A guy who had wandered across half a continent to freedom, barely surviving. Suddenly, Viner was the victim.
Yes.
I loved it. Didn't he? I remember he showed us a picture of that night, and the Lost Boy was like 7 feet tall, and Viner himself is also very tall. But it was just very funny because it was like this guy with this giant.
Who's had it
arm.
harder in this picture? One of the Lost Boys or Viner? And according to Viner, it's Viner.
That was very funny. But they did a great job, and Tom Gammel's bit as Morty was hilarious. Oh, what a drum solo that was. And Goldy, as you pointed out, Scully handled his sort of Bud Abbott side of the conversation in a very old radio way. That
Gee,
was
Morty, why do you say that?
Totally.
It was great, though. It was thanks again for doing it. It was very, very funny.
Yeah.
So we appreciated that.
Yeah.
Now, Goldy, was there something else you wanted to mention before we get into JJ's?
Oh, well, I only am talking about this, and by the time you hear this, maybe it seems like such old news, but because we weren't on the air when this submersible went down, I just wanted to briefly address it.
Yes.
So, the only thing I know about boats is when you build one, it's supposed to float on the water.
Yeah.
That's like the number one thing about boats. So you can't go, I built this really great boat. It sinks really fast.
Oh, no. Yes.
That's not
Right.
a boat.
No, that's a stone.
Yes. You're just so, for everyone to lose their mind when it doesn't work out is a little irrational to me, because the only purpose of a boat, even the Titanic was trying to float. It wasn't trying to sink so it could be at the bottom so everyone could look at it. It was trying to make from land to land and not be on the bottom. So to then go like, it's on the bottom, we should look at it, is absurd. But
Yes.
then there was on the news, and I know people were trying to make everyone feel better and to allay everyone's uneasiness about it. And, they had people who had been on the submersible on the news saying, trying to be reassuring and say, I think these people were at peace when they died.
Yeah.
Bitch, they exploded! Bitch! They exploded! There's no peace. They exploded.
Yes, they hella exploded.
You can't go. I was once at Windows of the World in the World Trade Center, so I'm pretty confident. As the 9/11 victims were jumping off, they were screaming, "Wee!" Because that wasn't the situation they were in, because you were in a different one where it wasn't exploding. You can't go, I've had comfortable rides in the back of an Uber Black, so I'm sure JFK died in peace.
No.
It's a different situation.
Oh my God. JFK's ended up being an Uber pool. Thank you very much.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, I also go ahead, Goldie.
Obviously we all want everyone to meet an end that isn't chaotic or distressing or disturbing
Totally
or painful.
gruesome.
But like the fact is you also can't sugarcoat what happened, which is, bitch, they exploded.
Which is, bitch, they exploded.
That's so funny. I read something also that because there were a couple billionaires on there, and some pretty funny memes about that. Like it just said like billionaires are good people deep down, that kind of stuff, and just an exterior shot of the sub that said Alexa play Air Supply, which I thought was very funny. But I also read that that one of the billionaires sadly brought his 19-year-old son on there who didn't really want to be there. And his plan was he was going to complete a Rubik's Cube at the bottom to set like some kind of Guinness World Record when he was down there. But you know what? Couldn't, too much pressure.
Oh, Jesus.
Terrible. We're awful
My
people.
first thought when it was just merely lost and I was serious about this, I mean, did no one say, hey, maybe we should just tie a string?
Yes.
Just tie a string so they
really
know where you
long
are.
There's so much string in the world. You could have a very long string.
Very long string. And then there's none of this. Where the hell are they? It's like, well, just, pull on the string.
Follow the string. I like that. String theory. And by the way, just to wrap up, that's funny about the sub stuff. Humor and tragedy always,
Right, hand in hand.
bears fruit. But to wrap up about the guest hosting, JC, you were excellent on the show. And I
Yes.
noticed that you...
Captain of the sub.
You were more involved in a way of keeping people on point, on task. And I noticed that you were really kind of like herding the cats in the right direction.
That's very nice.
But no, you did a great job. So
Thank you.
you for that. And now let's get back into our submersible, back into Johnny Jokes.
Whoa, they don't just sink, they also stink. Here's Johnny's.
Excellent, Ed. All right, well, maybe you heard this, some sad news. Neo-Western author Cormac McCarthy has died at the age of 89.
He gone!
Services will be held in the friscolating dustlight where the air smells of colitas and the old South meets the West.
Oh, wow.
All right, now I'm going to do a Norm.
All right.
Here's a Norm.
He died when he flipped a coin and lost.
That's right.
I don't know.
Very good. No Country for Old Men reference. We love it. Hey, here's a Norm. A Massachusetts woman has been arrested for stealing body parts from the Harvard Medical School morgue. The Harvard morgue is apparently filled with hands that have never fought, legs that have never run, and mint-condition dicks.
Oh, my God.
Back into Johnny. As July approaches, President Biden is getting ready for his summer trip. Biden will be saving the taxpayers' money as his trip is planned for the lip of the rug in the Roosevelt Room.
Oh, my God.
And finally, UB40, have you heard of them, Ed? UB40, the band, announced that they will be going back out on tour for the 40th anniversary of Red Red Wine. Awesome. So come celebrate at their new show, UB40, We Be 80.
That was my first
Johnny.
concert. My first concert was UB40.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
how terrible.
It was awesome.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pick this baton up off the ground. Here we go. Well, everyone is talking about the tragedy of this group of men who suddenly imploded, but enough about the New York Mets.
Oh, that's classic. That's great. Excellent late night. Yes.
An attempted coup by Yevgeny Prigozhin against Russian leader Vladimir Putin has been temporarily suppressed. Yeah, the situation is so chaotic, Russians are unsure which man is going to push the other out a window.
Tough to know.
Okay. Well, anti-vax presidential candidate RFK Jr. has challenged Joe Biden to a push-up contest.
Oh.
But Biden's pretty sharp. He challenged RFK to a polio off.
Love it.
Okay, I have a Gutfeld.
Oh.
That was a great
God
Gutfeld.
damn
I don't even really know what his voice
That's
sounds
pretty
like.
good.
It's
That
kind
sounds
of a
right.
drone.
That sounds right.
Well, the summer box office has been a disaster, as even the much-anticipated Flash movie starring the non-binary Ezra Miller bombed at the box office. Apparently, the Flash is so boring, even the woke mob fell asleep.
Good delivery.
Well, he thinks non-binary is a
Right.
joke, so
Yes.
he pauses. there.
Pronouns.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I'm gonna end. And finally a Norm.
All right.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to match mint condition dicks, but here we go. All right. Well, San Francisco is now a drug-fueled nightmare, but the mayor says there is economic hope for that city. An upcoming giant Jehovah's Witness convention. Apparently the plan is 10,000 crackheads will say, I gotta get the fuck away from those people.
Those were fun.
I should spit my gum out, but it's so good I don't want to. Hang on.
What is it? Is it
Mentos spearmint, which
I
is
should have guessed. That's your number one.
Is that your favorite gum of choice?
it is, and I know a lot lot about gum.
He does. He really does.
I really do.
He's not
it's
kidding.
the
So then I
best
have a
gum
question
going.
for you. Hold on,
Yeah.
Goldy.
Yeah.
Have you rabbit holed into neurogum?
No, I'm scared of stuff that's going to send me into like a seizure or anything that's like not normal.
What is neurogum?
I mean, are you talking about like does it have taurine or something or?
Oh, wait, this is my favorite topic as of like 3 days ago is this taurine supplement conversation. No,
Yeah.
that's not what I was referring to. But like, asterisk that and let's talk about that later.
Okay.
No, neurogum, which is like, I don't know. This is going to be some woo-woo medicine I'm going to give you. So
I love
do
it.
not like hold me accountable for any of this TikTok science I'm about to give you. Apparently, you can go and buy neurogum, which is gum that has nicotine in it, not tobacco, not additives, nothing, just
Okay.
a little bit of nicotine, and it's supposed to be good for your brain. Now, I'm not a doctor, nor have I consulted with one. This is some TikTok woo-woo science I'm giving you.
Right.
But apparently, it is somehow good for your brain. Pure nicotine, not nicotine and tobacco, not tobacco, just
Right.
pure nicotine.
Says
Is it the
tobacco
gum you
company.
use when you're trying to quit cigarettes, or is it different
No.
from that?
Because
Oh.
that's got other things in it. No,
Oh.
it's just you can buy it at like Costco. I mean, you can buy this thing anywhere. It's like neurogum.
Okay.
I'll
I
look
see
into
Take that for
that.
what you will.
'Cause-
But I'm not
Yeah.
promoting this either, by the way. Like
Yeah.
I don't think anybody should
No.
be doing
Yeah.
it.
Right. I wonder how addictive it is. It's probably really.
Yeah, well,
I
I can tell
imagine really addictive.
yeah, nicotine tends to be quite addictive.
I don't know that I want more neural activity. What I would like is like less brain activity.
Yeah, but why do you know about
Well, that was I saw in the news briefly that it's a longevity thing, and I have my eye peeled on that. And I go to a kind of like
You go to a woo
doctor
doctor.
who's into that stuff. Although it's like what
Like an
bald guy really
osteopath?
wants to live to like 110.
But I'm obsessed now with this. I'm obsessed with this supplement.
Are you doing it?
Okay, hold on a second. So today is what? Monday. I became obsessed with this supplement on Friday. So I'm now 3 days in, but I haven't committed to ordering it. Okay.
Okay.
It's sitting in my shopping bag.
Yes.
I decided I needed to do an extensive amount of research on this thing.
Taurine.
Yes, before. But can I tell you, like, my husband's laughing at me in the corner and I'm trying to ignore him. Okay? So I apologize because he's giggling, making
we're
fun of me.
laughing with him.
Well, look into the dose though, because apparently Monster has like 1,000 milligrams,
Yes.
and you're only supposed to take 10 or something.
Right. So don't look at the energy drinks as like that version of supplement. But if you just go and find the purest of the things that and just take a taurine, supposedly it is that. But also, TMI guys, I was like, this was going to help me with like I've self-diagnosed myself with things.
Yes.
Also, I have a PhD in WebMD. This is what I have to say.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Alex. If you need any advice, I'm available. I'm like 24/7. Okay, concierge doctor. I diagnosed myself with like I'm not processing fat properly, so I need like an enzyme to help me digest fat, and taurine is how it popped up. And then all those articles about Red Bull Monster happened also.
Yes.
Oh,
you
well,
have
wait a
been down the
minute.
rabbit
Now,
hole.
first of all, we have to talk about
Not
this
the
on
way
the show.
this
So
podcast is supposed to go.
No.
I love
wanna,
this.
Yeah, let me just do a quick intro and we'll keep talking about this. But you know, Goldy, I'll give you a little tip here. Actresses like to hear themselves praised and
This is a
introed and
different
drum rolled,
type
and she'll
of
say
actress
no,
we're
no,
dealing with
no.
here.
But
Oh
Alex-
my God.
Alex is talking nonsense.
It's a very 2012 perspective on actors.
hey, that was a great year
life.
for her.
On life.
Be nice, Alex. Give me a nice
course.
intro. Don't be a dick.
Mila, I'm only going to be a dick in the interview, not in the intro. I promise you. Oh, fans, we have such a treat today. We have just a bona fide star with us today, which is something
Thank you.
unusual. Yeah, Goldy and plus another star. Because, usually we deal with the dregs and the depressed writers and all that kind of stuff, and it's fun and funny, and we have a great time. But today, we have a legitimate movie star here to talk with us.
Yes.
We have our coworker from Family Guy, our coworker from Ted, A-list movie star, Mila Kunis is here to talk with us today. Mila, thank you so much for being here.
Why don't you talk to me this way when we record once a week?
Because we have our own thing. We have our own thing when you record. And by the way, how dare you say once a week? How about once a month? And
That's not true, JC. That's not true. Oftentimes, it is
once every 3 weeks, and
I
you're in
record
and
on
you're
a
out.
Thursday
It's
for
true.
about 15 minutes a day. Okay.
That's true.
And you half of the time on those records is you asking us, did you mail the checks out? When am I going to get the check? No, Mila, now we've been working together. You've been on Family Guy since basically the beginning, since 1999. And second season, and we'll get into that whole kerfuffle later. But poor Lacey's mistake was to your benefit. Whoops.
Daisy.
What are you gonna do? But then, of course, where our bond really formed was on the set of Ted.
Yeah.
Where we had a blast. We had such a fun time in Boston, and you were so awesome in that movie. And I contend that you were absolutely the secret sauce for that movie. People talked about Mark Wahlberg and look at this teddy bear and isn't he funny? But look at what happened between Ted 1 and Ted 2. You weren't in Ted 2. It did not perform. You were in Ted 1. It went through the roof. So
I know. Isn't it amazing how that happened?
yes. Well, you were fantastic in that. And you are fantastic on Family Guy. And let's talk.
Yes.
Let's open with Family Guy because, you're such an important part of that cast. And I feel like Meg, of all the characters on the show, has actually had kind of the most development over the years. I feel like there was a decade maybe where Meg was just shut up Meg and, kind of the whipping
Punching
girl
bag,
for
yeah.
I don't think
abuse.
Okay, go on. Yeah.
But I'm saying now in the last like 5 or 6 seasons, you've had a lot of storylines dedicated to you.
I have a theory.
Yes.
I have a theory. It's because you ran out of everyone else's storylines. Okay.
All
Been on
right.
for so many years. Everyone's had their day. Okay. Everyone's had things to say. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, we've ran out of storylines. We got this other character. Maybe she should speak. And then that happened. And I was like, wow, look at this is amazing. I don't think anything's changed now. Like, because people still go, shut up, Meg, all the time. Nobody goes, oh my God, that one episode. No, people just say shut up, Meg, all the time. My kids are like, what does that mean?
Oh, boy,
no.
you really are Jewish to have that perspective. You're like, I think you ran out of stories for everyone else, and that's the only
Hey, hold on,
reason
why
I'm
is
getting
it a
any
Jewish
time.
thing? Hold on, why is
Because
it a
you're
Jewish thing?
finding the negative in it. You're instead of saying like, oh yes, my God, my blossom is here.
I don't think
You're
that's
just
negative. I think it's great that all the other characters ran out of storylines.
you're saying it
And
again.
I find that's not negative.
That was a definite positive twist on it. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Tracy.
all right. Okay, fine. Anyway, Mila, you're fantastic on the show. And one of the most fun things, you really have given Meg this character that I don't even think was intended in the first place. I think you give her, even in the midst of kind of being stepped on and being the family joke, Meg has an edge that you bring to her. And now I want to know, how has this character developed in your mind over the years?
Alec, it's so weird to have you be so nice to me.
Stop saying that.
This is great.
I'm like, is this a joke? Like, I don't know how to
The look on your face.
Stop
Yeah, I don't know how to
exposing
treat
me.
you. Because a part of me feels like you're fucking with me, but I'm like, oh wait, no, I have to be
I'm
serious.
not, Mila.
Okay. How do I treat the growth of this character? I have no control over this character. Like, I am an anime. Like, somebody asked me a question at one point about like the Meg's growth and like my growth in
me
life.
just now.
No, prior to you,
Oh,
asked.
okay, all right,
Like,
got it.
and it was like my growth as an actor and Meg's growth, and I went, hold on a second. I have no control over Meg at all. I have no control over how she walks, how she what happens in her life, how she acts. All I can control is the booth and what happens in the booth. And so what I think happened, my guess is I got more comfortable with myself and with chit-chatting, and out of the idea of like who I became as a teenager, call it, right, or in my 20s, I think out of that came a different version of Meg, is like who I like. I started Meg when I was 15.
Yeah.
14.
Oh my God.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I was just a different person at 15 than I was at 2020.
You don't have to give your real age. That's okay.
Like, do you know how old I am?
Yes,
I'm
I do, because I saw it on Wikipedia. You've got a big birthday coming up. Oh, boy.
Is that not crazy? I don't know. I
Oh.
think it's crazy. I know. Anyways, moving on. But I think that just like I naturally became more confident and like honed in my own way of speaking and my whatever, like all the things that you do become as a person. And I give credit to the writers, I guess you and other writers, for
We fight him tooth and nail to get Meg involved, honestly.
but like I think that there is a skill set, and I've said this about really great scripts and really great writers, and I think it's once you figure out your actor's cadence and their superpowers, and you write to their strengths, not their weaknesses, I think magic can happen. And I think that when writers don't allow that to be explored, and they're just stuck in their ways, and they're like, this is the way it is because I see it that way, there is no progression. There's no evolution. And I think that to all the characters in Family Guy and to all the writers in Family Guy and directors, I think they allowed all the actors to grow and then hone in on their superpowers and write to that.
Yeah, that's true. Although Seth Green never grew. Okay, let's move on. So I want to ask, now I'm making fun of him, not you. See, it's transfer.
He's not even here to defend
But
himself.
I know he's not here. That's the key when I make. Yeah, you defend him. So I want to ask a couple things about Meg. One serious and one kind of fun.
Yeah.
So the fun thing, one of our favorite things to do when we know you're recording is to give you a song.
I know.
And so tell us how that makes you feel.
Does not make me feel good, Alec. It's like
No, you're good.
Dread. JC,
You're better than you think you are.
JC, you are mute in all the records and you laugh. I
That's
see
not
you.
true. No, you're better than you think you are.
That's not true. That's not true. Guys, we're not lying anymore. Let's just be honest. I'll get an email and God forbid I see like a link to an audio file. I'm like, oh my God, again. And I don't even want to open it. That's the truth. I never open it. I was like, I don't want to know what the song is. I don't care because I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. And then I'm going to try to pretend like I know how to sing. And I don't know how to sing. So I'd rather just go in the booth and just do the best I can with what I've got. Many people have tried. Many people have tried to prove me wrong in my ability to sing.
Yeah.
From pop stars
Yep.
to show creators to everybody, my daughter included. And I view notes as loud or quiet. Okay.
Yes.
That is, I don't know how you differentiate notes. I just differentiate volume.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
That's
That's it.
interesting.
But I can tell you when you're bad.
Right.
I can hear you. Oh, I'll tell you when you're off. I'm like, wait, not saying. So I can hear you. I have really good rhythm, but I provide just high noise, low noise.
I will
was-
say,
Nothing else.
Yeah. Go ahead, JC.
we had a session where Patrick, our other engineer, was singing you the lines, or even Alec. It might have been Alec who was singing you the lines, and they are in a different octave. So you kept singing it lower, and I said, "Let me just try something," because we're in the same octave, and I sang the line, and you copied it exactly.
Ooh,
So I'm
maybe
just going to
that's the
say,
key.
yes,
Is I will copy you.
that's right.
Don't make me sing, but I will copy it. Like if you remember, I don't know if JC, you were around for this, or Alec, I don't even remember. When did you start Family Guy?
2004.
When did I start Family Guy?
1999.
99. Goldie, when did you come in? Oh, you came in.
I've come and gone.
Yeah.
I told her
Goldie's
that,
a
yeah.
revolving
So-
door.
Early on, prior to all of you, McFarlane was certain. There is a recording of this somewhere. Certain that he could make me sing. And I think it was like, it was Sound of Music.
Oh, what?
Okay. I don't encourage this for the sake of the podcast, but just for your own personal enjoyment, see if you can find this file somewhere that I'm
You-
sure exists.
I'll
Do you
try.
remember
I'll
what song? Was it-
Farewell,
Oh, yeah.
adieu, a Wiedersehen, good night.
Yes. Let's hear it.
No.
1 and a 2 and.
Farewell. Okay, here's
Oh,
what McFarlane.
That was good.
That was good.
Okay, that's about it. That's as far as it gets. He made me sing Note, or you know what? Just find it. It was
I'll look
Yeah.
for it.
hours of hell.
He
It
just
was
made you
mean.
sing one syllable at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he thought that I like instead of just making this is when I had the conversation, make Meg a bad singer. Like Meg
Yeah.
is just let's make her a bad singer. She's
That's
just
smart.
not gonna be Alex and she's not gonna be you. She's just gonna be bad. Like
Yeah.
because I cannot sing and this is torture for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Meg became
A bad singer.
it was so
That's
fun.
also the truth of kids, though, that you would go if you and your spouse were both good singers. It's likely your kid would kind of, confound you with that.
yeah.
Right.
Yes. So
Yes.
I'm okay with that as long as we're playing into the fact that Meg cannot sing. Like it's okay if that's a part of the story, but
Yes.
Well, my personal favorite, it was when we made a joke that at the end of one episode that you were traded to American Dad, and
Yes.
so then you had to sing the American
Good
Dad
morning.
theme
That was
song,
perfect.
but you didn't know the words. That as we wrote it, you didn't know the words, so you said "Good morning USA," ba da 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 da, and the aliens
really-
gay. Like, that was just a great musical highlight for us. So please keep singing exactly the way you're singing because we love it, and we will keep sending you the music. But
wait, you remember in Ted you made me sing?
yeah, what did you sing in Ted? I forget.
Got cut out because I was so bad.
What?
The character goes on a date. So I'm actually not sure. Somehow, I want to say Mark and I end up in like a
Karaoke bar?
I want to say like a bar. Yes, and so I had to sing, and I was so upset that day. I was like, I cannot believe you were making me do this now in a movie. I was like,
Oh.
we haven't learned our lesson for all these years, and now I have to do it here.
Those were my favorite days on set.
Trying to
Days
see if I
like
can
that.
find it.
But let me get into a slightly more serious question about Meg here. Because you have noted to me, and I would guess to Rich and to whomever, a couple of times, when you feel that Meg is guilty of cultural appropriation, like you'll get some lines where you have expressed like you're not totally comfortable with the way that Meg is speaking. So just talk a little to that. Like how does that? Why are you laughing?
Because I know it's one specific thing, right? That are we referring to one specific cultural appropriation that Meg does in a whole episode?
Well, I feel like honestly, for the last like half a dozen years or so, we kind of let Meg slide into this version of herself where she sort of will appropriate like kind of a more African American style of
Yes.
speech. And you have pointed that out a couple of times. So just tell me about like how that makes you feel when you see that in the script and like what your thought process is there.
I mean, it's a Family Guy script, so I'm offended. Something's gonna offend me at any point. Like I get to come in and not be like, "How is this gonna get on air?" I mean, I think I say it in every recording. I
That's
go,
true.
"This is not gonna get on air." Like more so than that one, it was the surrogate episode when she was a
Yes.
surrogate.
Yeah.
I was blown away by the dialogue. I was like, because I found it to be so funny, but so offensive that it was
Yes.
like, I couldn't understand how people were, but I love offensive humor. So I want to say this. I love offensive humor. Okay.
Yes, we know.
Yeah.
We know.
I'm like, the fact that people are allowing Family Guy to still flourish in that environment, I think is a gift.
Yeah.
I never want it to change. And I don't know if there could be another Family Guy today that would
True.
maybe start off, right?
Yeah.
But the Meg thing, it just makes me laugh because I'm like, how are people not offended by it? Like, I think it's more like, I just don't understand how people aren't writing in being like, fuck you, I can't believe you're culturally appropriating. Like, I'm just shocked that Family Guy's getting away with it. Not that I'm offended by it, but that society is letting Family Guy get away with it.
I think most people, like 90% of people, fall into silently being fine with everything, but we hear mostly from the most offended people by nature, and that like most people are like, yeah, tell your joke, I get it's a joke, whatever. And then there's 10% who have an enormous microphone who are mad. And for good reason sometimes. Like, but
I look at Family Guy and I'm like, here's the thing about Family Guy is they offend everybody across the board. They don't pick on one person or one culture, one ethnicity. They just go after everybody, which is why it's okay. It's not like, I've made fun of Family Guy makes fun of everybody. But I find it to be the only show that still is able to do that on television.
Yes, and we've been grandfathered in, I feel like. I feel like people expect Family Guy to be this certain thing that luckily we're allowed to keep doing. And to your point that we do, I know that's sort of our shield. We're an equal opportunity offender. But it is true, and when you think about it, the person who gets shit on by far the most on the show is Peter. We make him look like a total idiot week after week. He says dumb stuff, like we make him look like a moron. We make him seem racist, homophobic, and it's all over the place with him. But I would say to your Meg thoughts there, something that it kind of came to me the other night when I was thinking about this interview and thinking about that particular point is this is Meg. Like, think of Meg as this desperate girl who gets shit on constantly. So she is clinging on to anything that she feels makes her feel special or different in any way. So I feel like that's kind of like where that sort of quote unquote cultural appropriation comes from. It's like Meg's desperate attempt to be anything.
I also, yes, I agree. I also think that sometimes in real life, paying homage to a culture, and today cultural appropriation, it's a murky line.
Yes.
I probably offend people all the time. Like, I know I do. Like, I know I do. Like, I live in a very multicultural world bubble, and I embrace it and I love it and I live it. So by me living it, does that make me a person who's now culturally appropriating? I don't even know anymore, right? Like, I'm like in a place where I'm like, Lord knows I'm probably offending people daily.
Yeah, well, let's hope not.
Right. Certain things they exist more the more you're on the internet, and that if you're constantly refreshing social media, then I think the concern over cultural appropriation is at a 10, whereas if you're just walking around in your daily life, it's probably at about a 4.
Yeah, right. And I think intent is always important. I think we've lost intent. Or my parents always told me when I was little, they're like, remember the source. Or keep in mind, like, if your friend tells you that's dumb, remember it's your friend and they're just looking out for you. It's not like somebody who's, so it's always like that. That's the one thing that I think we've lost sight of is like.
Now, they would say, remember the source, but how do you say that in Russian?
I don't even know.
You don't know. You've lost touch with yourself, dear.
I don't know I am very cool. Like, I can have a conversation in Russian, but as far as like having an educated conversation using words such as source, I'll tell you how to translate that.
Yeah. Right. Well, so let's go back in time a little bit to talk about that for people who might not be familiar with your story, which is you came to the United States from Russia when you were 7. Is that correct?
7.5, yeah.
Okay, you got me. 7.5. What are you 7.5 now? Counting, I'm 7 3/4.
I was 91, so I have to think back. I was like almost 8. So call it.
So 91. So Goldy was fresh off his debate championship. I was about to be valedictorian. Okay, we're setting the stage here. Okay. Goldy hates even the reference to that. So I read a little bit on this, and I watched some interviews with you that your first year in the United States, you've totally kind of blacked it out because it was just such a tough time for you. Can you tell us anything that you might remember now about that culture shock?
Well, it's all perspective, right? Like, I remember having the greatest experience. Ooh. My version was like, it was so easy and so fun. And my parents were like, you cried every day. I was like, I did. I have no recollection of it. I had the greatest time. For me, it was easy. By third, fourth grade, I spoke fluent English. It was nothing.
Yeah.
According to my parents, that's not the case. And when I came, it was really hard for me, and I didn't understand anything. And it took me a hot minute. Like my parents, again, I have no recollection of this, but they were like, "Yeah, your grandma, my." So when we moved here, it was my mom, my dad, my brother, myself, my dad's parents, and my mom's dad. And so we all lived in the same apartment.
Wow.
So a 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bathroom. It was 62 North Sweetser Avenue apartment.
Oh my God.
Yeah, go visit it, fans.
I know. Now I'm like, where's that? I mean, by the way, I was like, oh God, to buy that building and have it be like come full circle would be
Yes.
Yeah, just demolish it.
No, I wouldn't demolish.
Oh no, I'm just saying, do whatever you want with it.
So whatever it was, 7 of us lived in this 2-bedroom apartment, and my parents went to work the next day, multiple jobs, went to night school, did that whole thing. So my grandparents would like take us to school, pick us up, whatever. And according to my parents, my grandmother would like show up to school with like chocolates or whatever to like bribe the children to be nice to me. Like I have no recollection of this stuff. Like I want you to know, I had the greatest time. Like
Right.
I have no issues with it.
What are the sleeping arrangements in a 2-bedroom with the in-laws and the parents get their own room, or
Yes.
and then everyone else in the other room?
No, my brother and I were in the living room on like so this is it. Don't like I'm going to tell you the story, but like it was great, right? Like again, I had the greatest upbringing. It came across really sad, but it wasn't. Okay, it was lovely. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Our furniture came from the Salvation Army, so my aunt and uncles were here. So when we came to the States, they like furnished the apartment, and they got all the furniture from like Salvation Army, like donations.
Yeah.
And so our couch was like this futon-like couch.
Like a sofa
I don't know
bed?
how to describe it. Huh?
A sofa bed. A pull out.
It wasn't like something you pulled out. It was like it kind of just flopped out.
Okay.
Yeah, futon. Sure.
It wasn't even a futon because it was on the ground.
Okay.
So it was like a couch that just was like on the ground, and then it went flop, and then it was part of the couch. That's where my brother and I slept.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my mom and dad were in a room, and then my grandparents were in the other room. Then my grandfather was able to get an apartment, like an assisted living type of an apartment.
Yeah.
And then like a year later, my other grandparents were able to get like an apartment. And then my brother and I moved into the 2nd bedroom.
Oh, nice.
And then my brother and I lived together until he went to college.
Oh, cool, because you were so used to each other. That's great.
We didn't have
great. We had no choice. No choice. So now I was looking again, it was your first acting gig a Barbie commercial?
My first acting gig, like a commercial, my first commercial was a Barbie commercial. And then my first show was Days of Our Lives, maybe?
Yeah.
Awesome.
The first movie I did was either Piranha or Make-A-Wish Molly.
Was acting your idea or your parents?
Oh, my idea.
Awesome.
I'm an immigrant. My parents are Russian Jews that immigrated here.
Right.
I was supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
But so how does that happen? Like that you just come home from school with broken English and say you want to be an actor now, and they just say okay.
Okay, so here's another story. Okay.
Yeah, please.
I was 9 years old and 9? Yeah, 9. I was 9 years old and my parents were like, you need to like make some friends. This is their first story. And there was this thing that was interviewed on the radio at the time that was called Beverly Hills Studios. And it was like an acting school. And they interviewed it like, come and audition. And if your kid gets in, then they get to meet real agents and they get to take acting.
Yeah, it was a money grab.
Right.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Barbizon.
To my parents, it was like on a Saturday, 6 hours that I can be with other kids and like flourish and learn English, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you go to this audition, everybody gets in. Okay. So
Right.
I did. And then they're like, okay, so now you need to write us a check for, I think it was like $700, $900 at the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And my dad goes, pass, and walks out. Like we couldn't even, like we barely had $1 to our name. Okay.
Right.
So he walks out. And till this day, if you talk to my mom, she'll be like, I don't know why. My mom just was like, had a gut feeling. And she was like, I'm going to write this check. For
Aw.
no reason
Wow.
whatsoever. She
Yeah, that
writes,
sounds like a marriage.
like 48 years later,
Oh.
writes this check, comes back in the car, tells my dad. My dad's like, blah. Long story short, I go to this thing. My manager, who's my manager to this day,
Oh my
so
God.
we're now going on 31 years,
Wow.
was driving by one day and saw a gaggle of young kids standing outside of this place. And she was like, ooh, what is this place? Pulls over. They're like, we're an acting studio. She goes, I'm a manager. Hands them her card. They're like, we're having a showcase, whatever it is, next Saturday. She's like, I'll be there. We're doing the showcase. My parents looked at me and they're like, look, this is you. You want to do this? This is, you choose, you pick the person. This is all on you. I go and meet with all the different agents and managers with my grandfather. We took the bus everywhere. And I met with Susan Curtis. And I was like, I want to be with this lady.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
And that's what happened. But then throughout like my whole high school attempted collegiate life, my parents would use this as the carrot stick. Like they were like, we'll take this away if you don't. This was not something that
But would you also be like, I mean, when you start working
No.
and you get like Meg and you get that 70s show, or are you kind of looking at them like America's really easy, guys?
Okay. No. Kudos to my parents. Also, if you have Eastern European parents, you're a little scared of them. Like, I know it's
Yeah.
not cool to raise kids now to be a little bit fearful of you, but it
Right.
was back then.
Totally.
And so, no, I didn't, Goldie.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I had money
Oh.
until I was 18.
Oh, right, because it's in a trust. They put it in a trust.
I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. My dad took care of my finances. He took care of everything. I think I turned 19. I think it maybe 19. And he turned to me and goes, I no longer can take care of your finances. We're going to meet with business managers. It's now surpassed my skill. And I went,
Wow.
well, how much money do I have?
Oh my God.
Had no clue. I lived off of my parents. I would come home and be like, I need $20. And they'd be like, here you go. I never did this for money. I never knew how much money I was making. It was never a thing for me. And it still isn't. I don't care.
That is
don't-
amazing.
We could not be more unalike.
I did it all for money.
It's all
God
been-
damn it. All right, well, so let's talk about, because so you got you did the showcase, you got your manager, Susan, and then you're off and running, you're getting commercials, you're getting, bit parts on TV shows, and then comes that 70s show. Now, I read about this, which is now sort of famous Hollywood lore, was that they were requiring everyone to be 18 there, and you were 14, and you told them what?
Okay. So it's become this legendary story.
Yes.
Let me break it down.
Okay.
Pilot season. And it's not popular to do this now, but back then when you were an actor, you were whatever they wanted you to be. Okay.
Mhm.
I would audition and they were
Yes.
like, we're looking for somebody who is Asian. And I'm like, cool, I'm totally Asian. Like,
Totally.
I got this. It didn't matter. Okay.
Yes.
You just
Yeah.
kind of went anywhere and everywhere. So I got another show when I got 70 show. Same day I got 70s, I got a different show.
Can you tell us
It
which
was
one?
called
Oh, that popular, huh?
Sunset Beach. It's no longer
Oh.
on.
Yeah, Sunset Beach.
I remember,
remember
Sunset
that.
Beach.
Or no, I'm thinking of China Beach. I don't remember Sunset
Oh,
Beach.
maybe you're
actually.
right.
It was a daytime soap opera.
Oh,
Okay,
yes. Okay.
yeah, I don't know
remember
that.
I got that show. And my manager was like, you're not taking the show. Let's do this final audition tonight. We're going to see what happens here. So the things always back then were like, they need to be legally emancipated or over 18 because of working hours. That was
Right.
so it's why all the actors were always older playing younger.
Right.
So when I went in for my initial audition, they were like, how old are you? And I was like, I'll be 18. Like, don't worry about it. Like, it's fine. And then, of course, you go to a callback. By the time you get to producer or whatever it was at the time, producer or network call, you have to sign your contract before you even get in. So they knew that I needed a studio teacher. So when I went in for my producer call, I already put it in there, or not I, but it was already put in that I needed a studio teacher. And then the casting director called back and I remember him going, how old is she? And I was like, she's 14.
I want to point out something to the writers because this is a writing podcast, that I see it from the other perspective where you say the actors want to be known as 18 because then there are fewer restrictions on what they can and can't do. But as a writer or showrunner, what you want to do is employ a lot of kids so that you can throw back at the studio and network, hey, it's kid time. We got to shoot. We got to move. No, we can't do the changes. No, we can't bring them back. No, it's all done. We can't do any more. We only have an hour because of kid time.
Yeah.
Because at my last show, that was the best, was we had a kid, and I was able to just use the phrase kid time as a magic spell to make everything stop.
Yeah. Yeah, they need to get
never
tutoring.
even thought of that.
Yeah.
I just worked with kids, like little kids, in a movie recently, and it was lovely.
Yeah.
Like, because you're working on their time frame, and it becomes like this magical. Guys, I also just for the first time worked with an actor who had it in his contract. This has never happened. Okay, it was a 10-hour workday.
Oh.
Like, so it was like door to door 10 hours, and I was like, this is magical. Like,
do that?
I was like, this is the greatest workday for me of all time because he's wrapped. I'm like, bye.
Wow.
Well, you do know that your Family Guy work days are like 25 minutes.
No, they're not even that, Alex.
I was just to say.
If I stopped talking, they would be like closer to 5 minutes. It's
Yeah, it's just reading
It's
like,
true.
what are you doing today, Dad? And that's a wrap on Mila. So, all right. So you're on that 70s show.
Yeah.
And that feels like really the last wave of network shows that could get crazy popular. And that's exactly what that show did. So now I know you said you weren't really aware of the money because your dad was taking care of that for you, but you must have been aware of the popularity of it. Because it kind of, I feel like it was a show that even I, who was kind of maybe too old to be watching it, I enjoyed that show. And I feel like it really caught on with a lot of people. Did you feel that? Did you get, kind of like star treatment back then?
No. I mean, I guess hindsight 2020, yes, but no, not in the moment. Like going to the Emmys for the first time was like, wow, like the experiences that it gave me were like extraordinary.
Yeah.
But I still went to public school.
Right.
So, and I'm not a transplant when it came to living in LA. So it wasn't like I came to LA to be an actor. Like all my friends were all my friends since I was 9. They were all doing schoolwork. I would go to 70s and rehearse and do all that in the same time frame that they were in public school. And then after 70s and after their school, we would hang out at the park. Like my life stayed the same. It didn't change. It's just that 8 to 3 where kids are in school, I was in 70 show and I did school then. And then they would finish school and my parents would drop me off. But back in the day, it was this park called Plummer Park in West Hollywood. And they would drop me off at Plummer Park and my friends would get dropped off at Plummer Park and we would bum around the park until the sun came down. And then someone's parents would come pick us up and drop us off. Like,
I love it.
I led a very normal life.
Yeah.
So there wasn't like paparazzi or anything at that time for you, or?
Towards the, no, I've talked about this and I feel so grateful that this all happened in that little time frame when social media didn't exist.
Yeah.
Paparazzi thing was just becoming obnoxious, but not yet what it was. So my growth to that was like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And then around 19 is when like the Perez Hilton's thing started.
Yeah.
And that all began. And then like I would go to a club and there would be paparazzi outside, but it would be like 4 guys. It just wasn't the same thing as it is what it later became.
Yeah. Well, because I'm sure you have to deal with that a lot now.
Now
ironic.
it's shitty.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, because they must follow you two around wherever you guys go. All right, so you had a great and seemingly kind of a normal kid experience just with a TV show inserted in the middle of it, which is kind of crazy. And tell us about the first time that you met with Seth, because we alluded to this a little earlier in the show, but originally the voice of Meg was Lacey Chabert. And at least the story I was told, maybe you have the real version of it, was that her parents didn't approve of the show. They yanked her off, and that was your opportunity. Was that the way it unfolded in your eyes, or how did the Family Guy part of it come into focus for you?
I auditioned for it. Like it was like I was doing 70s, and my manager's like, "There's this voiceover thing. Do you want to audition for it?" And I was like, "No, that sounds great." So it hadn't aired yet. It wasn't like a thing. It was like you guys. I think that the season was recorded and it was about to premiere after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So the show had like this like spotlight on it, but it hadn't happened yet. And so I went in and auditioned for the show, and I had to be driven there because I was not 16.
Yeah.
Right? Awesome.
And I think it's a really much better question for McFarlane as to like why he hired me.
Right.
I don't know, to be honest. I have no skills. I did my voice. It's not like I did another voice. I just came in and I just chit-chatted and did my voice. And
Maybe that's
his
why.
thing was like, slow down,
Yeah.
slow down. Like that's all he kept telling me. And so I came back and auditioned again and he was like, Mila, slow down. And I was like, I don't know how. But then he hired me. I don't know why. I like it.
Well,
Because
by
you're
the way, I'm
perfect
so
for it.
grateful for this job. Like you have no idea.
Well, believe me, one hand washes the other because you're great at it.
So
And
good.
you now, by your profile, you raise the profile of the show just by being on it. But I've heard from Seth's side, you say from his perspective, I think what he would say is that they were casting for a 15-year-old girl, and you are a 15-year-old girl. And so
Yeah.
it just felt authentic to him.
Right.
So the choice you made of just being yourself was clearly the right one for
Yeah.
that moment.
But then about Lacey as to why,
Yeah.
I was told she didn't want to say, oh my God,
Yes, I knew it was something that had to do with like her
religion.
Yeah.
She
Oh,
was
wow.
offended by, oh my God. And I was like, and then of course, 2 scripts in, I was like, well, if she's offended by, oh my God, this, like, actually, this girl can't do the show. Like,
Right.
Right.
you know, like if the words, oh my God, are offensive, what about the content?
Yeah.
It's pretty limiting in the show business career to not be able to have a character be surprised and say, oh my God.
I
Right.
know.
But you know, there are those actors that don't do certain
Sure.
things because of religious
They're their beliefs. Yes.
beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you've got that 70s show. You're on Family Guy, and you had been in movies, but as you said, they were kind of forgettable. When did you make did you talk to your manager and say, hey, I'd really like to branch out into movies, or did opportunities just start to naturally come your way?
So during 70s, so 14 to 21, right? Whatever it was, 14, 21, 22, whatever we got 70s. We'll call it up until 18. Up until 18, I did 70s and I was still in school. So during hiatus weeks, when other people were able to go shoot movies, do things, I went back to school. So at all time, I was like school or 70s. I really had very limited option to do something else.
Right.
Then once I graduated high school, I was like, oh, I have like a slight window of opportunity now that I can go and shoot other things. But everything had to kind of lay into these little tiny windows of time. So if I auditioned for something else and I got it, 70s has the right to say no, which they did. They would say, no, you can't do that. We can't make the schedule work. We can't make the schedule work. Whatever.
Oh,
it
that
was,
sucks.
right? It all turned out okay, you know?
Yeah.
But, like Ashton went off and did films. Topher, everybody went off and ended up doing movies and stuff. And I was like, kind of doing them, but I was living my best life, guys. Again, I was like, this is amazing. I had no
I love that. Yeah.
70s. Oh, no, then I turned 18. And then I was like, I was going to college. So I did the whole thing. I did my SATs. I did my applications. I got into the colleges. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go to college now. And it lasted one day. I cried.
Oh.
Wait, was this at UCLA?
Nope. I did summer. I did the Zionist theory course there for
Okay.
summer. And I was like, I can't, no. So I went to LMU,
Okay.
private in LA, and I was still shooting 70s. So my schools, although I applied to schools outside of LA just to see if I can get in. So it was more like, I want to see if I can get into this one really fancy school just to like ego boost myself.
Yeah.
But then I had to stay in LA. So I looked at LMU and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to LMU. I didn't really want to go to LMU. Like, I didn't want to go to college. Like, I didn't want to do this. And I had to work and I had to be at work by like 10 a.m. So I had to take like a 6:30, 7 o'clock. Like, the whole thing was a hot mess.
Yeah.
So I went to my parents and I was like bawling. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I want to really do this and I don't want to go to school. And they're like, calm down. I'll defer. And my dad was like, okay, sure. So I deferred until I was 26. And then my dad ultimately came to me and was like, can I stop paying your deference fee? And I was like, oh yeah, totally.
That.
But when I made that decision at 18 to not go to college, I was still doing 70s, but my parents were like, if this is going to be your career, if this is a choice that you're making, then you better make this like a real choice. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I swear. So
Great.
70s ended when I was whatever, my early 20s. And at that point, it was like one of those where you were either a TV actor or you were a film actor.
Right. You couldn't be both at the time. Yeah.
And if you were TV and you got to film, you sure as hell aren't going to go back. Like it was like looked down upon. Like,
Right.
oh, once you're doing movies, television was like ick, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, what am I going to do? And I had this like chip on my shoulder of proving people wrong my whole life. And so I was like, I'm going to prove fucking people wrong. I'm going to see what I can do outside of television because that was easy and I got it. So I had to go and audition again. And I auditioned for anyone and everyone that was willing to see me. I had no problems. I was like, I'll fucking read for anybody and everybody. And it was Judd Apatow. And I read for him for the Seth Rogen, Katherine Heigl movie.
Yeah.
Knocked
Knocked Up. Yeah.
I read for Knocked Up, which was like an extensive audition process that was all improv based. And I had the best time. I was like, this is so much fun. I could just talk, right? It was great. I didn't end up getting it. Katherine Heigl got it. A year later, I got a call from Judd being like, hey, will you do me a favor and do a table read for this project I'm thinking of doing? And I was like, of course.
Yeah.
Probably.
You're no dummy.
Right.
Yeah. Also, like, why not?
Yeah.
So I go and I do the table read for Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
Ah.
Applause.
Awesome. Yes.
But different, okay? It was just Jason Segel and myself that remained.
Ah.
Very different table read.
Oh,
So I did
wow.
table read, never hear from them ever again. Okay, like done. And a year later, maybe I got a call like, hey, would you consider doing this movie? And I was like, hell yeah, a movie in Hawaii. I'm in. Didn't even care. Didn't read the script, didn't care. I was like, it's Hawaii. This
Yes.
would be awesome. And then that's how it all started.
Well, that's a great
Amazing.
story. And
I
by
love
the
that
way,
movie.
you were fantastic in that movie.
were.
And that movie was so fun. And you just really shone on screen there. So I think that was, I mean, a great ending to that.
But I'll tell you, hold
Particular-
on. But Alec, here's how it all comes full circle. So Sarah Marshall was all because of Judd. I will give Judd Apatow credit where credit is due. And it is
Yeah.
thoroughly him. Black Swan was also because of Sarah Marshall. So
Really?
yes,
How?
if you talk to Darren, he saw Sarah Marshall. I
That's
mean,
Darren Aronofsky,
Aronofsky.
right? The
Darren
director.
Aronofsky.
Yeah.
he saw Sarah Marshall, and this was so long ago, and this was before anybody Zoomed. Okay,
Yeah.
so he saw it. He was making this movie with Nat. He called, well, the agents called. They're like, hey, this movie, would you be interested in meeting for it? And I was like, I'm not fucking flying to New York for a meeting. I'm not that rich. Like, I was like, no, I live in LA. Like, I'm not fucking flying to New York for a meeting.
You're the
And
best.
I was like, but I'll Skype with him.
Ooh.
And they're like, what? And I was like, just ask him if he'll Skype. And Darren was like, of course I'll Skype. And this
Oh, yeah.
way before anybody did any of this stuff. And that's,
Yeah.
and so when you talk to Darren, he was like, I saw Sarah Marshall. And that's how all this kind of happened.
Can I tell
That's
a quick?
cool.
Can I interject
please.
just a quick story? So I was in a class. This was in late '90s called Acting for Comics in New York City with Joanna Bexon, and it was just for people who wanted to dip their toe in Meisner technique. So I become friends with this guy in the class, and he's like, "Oh, I'm making a movie," and I'm like, I'm making a jerk off motion with my hand. I'm like, "Yeah, I bet you are." And then he's like, always like at the end of class, he's like, I got to go edit my movie. And he's talking about a stupid movie. And so anyway, cut to like 3 months later, that movie wins Sundance. It's Pie.
Pie.
And it was Darren Aronofsky taking Acting for Comics with me.
Oh my God. That's a great
And I've never
interview.
talked to him since. I left him a message congratulating him. He never returned.
He could sense your jerk off motion in your look to him. That's hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
I love the idea of, because you call Darren Aronofsky, he's a serious director.
Yes.
I love the idea of serious directors like, hey, I saw Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I thought it was, it's like you picture like P.T. Anderson, like, oh, I loved the 40-year-old virgin. Let's get this person. But it's true. They all watch each other's work.
But
And they're-
Darren is not like Darren. When we ended up becoming friends, the first movie Darren and I went to go see was Twilight. In the theater.
Oh,
That's
it wasn't
amazing.
like Darren is very fun and funny, and like I hate ruining his reputation, but like he's so of all the people. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
just like he just loves movies. Like he loves all forms of entertainment. He fucking loves Family Guy. Like he loves he just loves film and television. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not
Yeah.
pretentious,
Yeah.
but he ended up building this reputation where people are like, "Ooh, he's so serious."
And
Yes.
touch and
When I was
breathing.
impressed, I was like, "Oh yeah, he's so serious." But I didn't know how to be like, "Not really," but I guess so.
Right.
Like I didn't know how to answer it.
So let's talk about Black Swan for a minute, because obviously that movie got a lot of attention. It was nominated, won awards. You were nominated and praised, and as well as Natalie. What was making that movie like for you?
That's a whole conversation that can take up an hour. Nobody wanted to make that movie. Nobody wanted to give that movie money. It lost finances more than I can count. Okay, like
Wow.
somebody should do a study on how this movie was just made, not the end result, but like the little movie that could. Black Swan took probably 10 years to get made. It was
Really?
a script that Darren found, that he loved, that he went after Nat for while she was still, if I recall correctly, at school, in college. That's how long ago this started. And she was like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it was like a whole process. Then finally Nat signed on. Then no one wanted to make this movie. They're like, no one's going to give you money. So then they kind of got money. Then I signed on. Then in the midst of me rehearsing, like doing all the dance stuff, we lost all our money. Then somehow he managed to find more money. Then like the day before production started, we lost money again. Then he like managed to find it somehow. I mean, it was hobbled together. So for anyone to ever say like movies are easy to make, like F you, no, they are not. Like there's
Right.
no science, there's no like rhyme or reason for it. It was the hardest thing to get made. We had no money. We were shooting in New York. I guess I can say now, we barely had any permits to legally shoot. I'm pretty
Right.
Uh-oh, busted.
Yes, it was shot illegally. I promise you. I would
I
get
believe
calls.
you.
We were like in our 20s, so I would like to say we were all young and like had no responsibilities. There's no way I could do this today.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you'd get a call at like 11 o'clock at night and be there. And he's like, listen, if you can get down to whatever it was like Lafayette and 3rd, we're going to shoot real quick. And I was like, all right, I'll be right there. And then like you kind of just like run down and you shoot illegally in a subway with Maddie Lee Boutique, who ended up becoming this amazing DP after Black Swan. He would have his camera like this in the subway station. And like our art department would run around on a live subway and like cover up all the posters with fake posters because it was also Nat's face while we were shooting. She had some movie coming out. And so you would see Natalie Portman like on this. So they would have to like cover that up. And then Maddie would like shoot like this and he'd be like, just look natural. And I was like, okay. And then just kind of shot. Like it was the most incredible experience that you could not replicate today. Like
Right.
I don't know how you would ever do it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It sounds so
That's,
New York too.
It doesn't. You would never know that watching the finished product, by the way.
Because
Like,
everybody involved is extraordinary. I mean, you had Darren Aronofsky, you had Maddie, who is a stunning director of photography. I mean, he's beautiful. Everybody that worked on production did it because they loved filmmaking, not because they expected an end result that was ever going to be what it became. I mean, ever.
I love that you call Natalie Portman Nat, because when you first said that, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, did Nat Faxon write that? And I just forgot.
Oh, I like Faxon Rash. No, Natalie Portman. Sorry.
Yeah. And so are you still friendly with her?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a good person to work with.
I've never worked with somebody who wasn't. I've been super lucky. I was talking to somebody about it. Like I've had the best of luck when it comes to female co-stars that have been lovely human beings.
I love that.
I don't even think I've worked with a shitty male co-star, to be honest.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Well, speaking of that, speaking of co-stars, Book of Eli, which I really loved, a dystopian, cool movie with Denzel. I mean, were you pinching yourself working with Denzel Washington?
I think the whole experience is so surreal. Like, I don't even know where to begin on that one. It was an interesting circumstance. I won't say the name of the movie. Okay. I was attached to a different movie.
Right.
A very big movie.
Ooh.
Okay.
A comedy. And then I got Book of Eli. I auditioned for Book of Eli. And I auditioned for this other movie. And I got this other movie. And then I subsequently got Book of Eli. And I didn't know what to do. And I was like, oh my God, I committed to this one project. But how do you turn down Denzel? Like, I was like, I've never, like, how's that in your career? Like, I was like, oh my God, what do I do? My agent at the time got a call from Denzel. Wow. And I can't do a good Denzel impersonation. But the person was like,
But Meg can.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done.
Great callback.
Tap Goldy. Essentially, Denzel to my agent was like, you know the right decision. Like he was being Denzel. So my agent was like, I just got a call from Denzel. You're doing Denzel's movie. And I was like, yeah.
He's like, I think Denzel threatened me. You're doing the movie.
I mean, you got Denzel Washington. So, it's like 3 months and you're shooting in these extraordinary locations and everything just feels so big. And it was the biggest budgeted movie I've ever done in my life. And you had Gary Oldman, you had Denzel Washington, and I kept going, one of these things is not like the other. And it's me. And I was there and I was like, how did I get here? Like it was not lost on me. Okay.
Yeah.
It was surreal. But I loved working with Denzel. I had absolutely the greatest experience. Oh, but I'll tell you a good Denzel Washington story.
Please.
So, I mean, it's not that good, but it's good for like the timeline of the world. Okay. So we were shooting Book of Eli during when Obama became president. And it was like this big thing. I was like, oh my God, Barack Obama is president. This is so big in the world. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, so Denzel's not going to be here on Friday. He'll be back Monday. And I was like, where's he going? And they're like, oh, to DC for Obama's inauguration. And I went, of course he is, because he's Denzel Washington. And so then he came back on Monday and I was like, you need to tell me everything about it. Like, what's Barack Obama like? I want to know all the details. So that's the type, he's lovely. Lovely. And he was like, oh, kid, he's great. You're going to love it. Whatever. Great.
I love it.
That is so cool. And he's obviously he's such a legend. Now, do you read reviews? Because I've noticed that in reading your reviews, critics are always very kind to you. They love you in movies. So do you read that and you're like, yes, or do you just kind of try and ignore it and just do your job?
I don't read any reviews. They don't get sent to me.
Oh, well, they're very good. I'll send you some.
Okay,
In case you're interested in
I
some
have
of
a
your...
really good ego, Alec. Like, I feel really good about myself. I really like myself. I don't want
What's that like?
myself.
Well, good for you for that. Okay, so now we come to the crown jewel of your career, of course, which is Ted. Now, was that something because you have, such a great relationship already in place with Seth, where he was like, hey, you want to do this? And you're like, sure, Seth.
Do you know the real story? And are you asking me for the story, or do you not know the real story?
I don't think that I do, or I don't recall it right now.
Okay. This is where I wish McFarlane was here, because
Yes.
it's so long ago. There's like gaps in my memory when it comes to this. Ted took a while to get made.
Yes.
And then from the original incarnation of Ted to where it ended up, I aged by a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it started, the casting process started for how do you put Ted together. I think I was like 22, 3.
Yeah.
And then by the time we shot Ted, or maybe not, but you know what I'm saying? Like however old I was like 25 when we shot Ted, whatever it was, years passed.
Right.
So when you guys started casting Ted, McFarlane would come to me and be like, give me like an actor, like who's a great actress that I can cast for this one part. And McFarlane and I for a year played this game, and I'd be like, what about that person? What about that person? And kept giving
Name
me
anyone but you.
Because she was too young at the time.
nowhere near, not even like offended by it. I was just like, it's never going to be like, it wasn't even like a thought in my mind that it was ever going to be me. Okay.
Right.
Ever. I kept going like different actresses that I knew that I was like, oh, they're really funny. They're really good. They're funny. Years go by. And then he finally turned to me and goes, well, would you do it? And I was like, oh, I guess so. I was like, yeah, all right, fine, I'll do it.
I love
years later, or at least a year to 2 years later.
Well, that's amazing. And you probably know, because you remember this part of it. It wasn't originally supposed to be Mark Wahlberg. It was supposed to be Will Ferrell, and then Seth Rogen, and then Ryan Reynolds.
They were all in the office, Alec. They would come to the office to meet with him. And it was like, we went through so many different, Yeah.
I remember he met your co-star, Justin Timberlake, who came into the office. And Seth, being Seth, who's sort of like the, 40-plus-year-old version of a 90-year-old man, he meets Justin Timberlake kind of wanting to be not impressed by him. And so I remember everyone in the office was abuzz when Justin Timberlake came in, because he was at the peak of his, sexy back and all that kind of stuff. He couldn't have been nicer to everybody, said hello. And afterwards, when he left, I was like, what was he like? What did you think? Is he going to be good for the movie? He's like, he kind of did that thing where he picked his nose with his
I
thumb
you
a
told me
little
the
bit.
same story.
And I was like, "Are you serious? That's why you're going to disqualify this charming man?"
Wait, you just went like
Alec,
this?
he told me the same thing. He did this.
Yeah, yeah.
And Seth was like, ugh, by that. And I was like, you're crazy. I remember going, you're wrong. Like, you're just wrong. You're like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but all the
Buggers.
dominoes fell into place there because you and Mark ended up being just perfect for that movie. And I think I remember, sitting on the set there, and you were there, and we're watching this movie get made, but there's no Ted to look at. It's just a guy holding these two silver balls that are going to be like the CG, template for where Ted was. So certainly leading up to the finished product, I was quite skeptical as to I don't know if this is gonna work at all. You didn't see the bear, and then the minute you saw the bear in the movie was when I was kind of like, oh, okay, this can work. Did you have that same experience? Were you on set I don't know what this is, and then when you kind of saw the finished product, you're like, oh.
I'm on set like that every day. Alec, in any movie, you can't control anything in the edit bay. You kind of are there and you're like, well, I hope this gets Frankenstein together. Forget having an animated character in a movie.
Yeah.
Any movie, you don't, every day you're like, well, I don't know what I did that day. I hope this makes sense in the edit room. You don't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that one turned out great, and we were so thankful to have you in that. And Seth obviously made a great call having you in there because, again, the reviews you don't read, they were all like, Mila shines, and she could have just been the naggy girlfriend, but her charm and winning ways, all that kind of stuff.
I argued about the nagginess a lot. Yeah, because he asked me for my notes, and I couldn't find the script. He goes, he's like, do you have your script with your notes? And I was like, I have to find them, because he was so curious to know what my notes were for the character, because I write on all my thoughts or whatever on the side of the lines. And I would argue with him every day. At one point, there was a crying scene, and he wanted her to do this thing where I was like, no, she's not that annoying person. We're not doing this shit. She's got her shit. I remember arguing this with him all the time.
Yeah. Yes. Well, whatever the alchemy was there, it came out right.
I'm so happy. I love Ted.
Yeah. No. So did I. Now,
did you write the second, Alec?
What's that?
Did you work on the second?
I did, as did Goldy. What's that? Wow. Oh, she's asking, did I work on the second? It was such
That's
a turd.
like asking, hey, do you still do stand-up? And you're like, yeah.
No, because I don't, you know what? Sometimes people don't always go and do the sequels.
No, believe me.
Writers don't write the sequels.
Oh, I was chomping at the bit to do that sequel.
Have you seen the second one?
I didn't. I was so upset over the fact of what happened that I refused to watch
happened? What happened?
Well, nothing bad happened. That came out really dramatic. But I think I was so annoyed at the reason why I didn't do it. Had to do with the stereotypical Welcome to Hollywood, where somebody was and I wasn't. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not putting myself a 2 to 1. Not okay anymore.
Yeah, so we can explain that. There was a sexist pay imbalance, let's say, there when coming to the sequel, where Mark Wahlberg was going to be making X, which was quite high, and then I'm sure their offer to you was insulting by comparison.
It was, yes, exactly. And so I was like, that's not nice to do. You can't do that. That's not nice. And so I was so annoyed. Okay, out of spite, I was like, I'm not watching the fucking movie.
Well, I'll give you a key. If you want to watch the first half hour, that's very funny. The minute they get into a courtroom, you can turn it off. As I tell Goldy all the time on here, the one scene I wrote that was not touched at all, never cut, edited, was the courtroom scene that's incredibly boring. So
now I want to watch it.
No, you have this hilarious animated bear who can do anything. Let's put him in court. That's what people want to see. Fun-loving drunk bear sober in a suit in court.
And by the way, Goldy by this time was fully ensconced in the McFarlane universe, so he was like the main punch-up guy there on set. And so he was there to tell us every day these little things when we're filming in court. He's like, this is a great scene. Longer. Let's make it longer.
What's the one thing people will go any length to avoid in their lives? Jury duty. Let's make the movie Jury Duty.
They just made a whole show, Goldy. Called
I know.
I
Yeah,
know.
it's a funny
And it was
show.
good.
Yeah,
It was
they did a
good.
good job with that. Well, Mila, we certainly missed you in that second movie. Not that Amanda Seyfried isn't a lovely person, because
She's
she is.
fantastic.
She is.
She's great.
Well, I think it's like if you know, it's an important thing from a writing perspective. When you do something to follow up on something, the thing people liked was the original thing, and they want to see a different version of the original thing. It's like if you go to a restaurant and you go, I love this restaurant, I love the lasagna, and you go back and they say, well, you know, we have like a new program and it's all like Asian themed, and you're like, but the lasagna was why I'm here.
coming back.
You know,
Yeah.
I think there's a bait and switch a little bit.
You were the lasagna.
Yeah, the comfort food.
Yes.
Yeah, you're the lasagna in that scenario, Mila. And proudly. All right, so now let's talk a little bit. I don't know if he's still in the room, but you're married with Ashton. You guys have a great relationship. You're one of the awesome Hollywood power couples. But Ashton, I always see kind of, you know, he'll go on Ellen, and you see him, and he's like always involved in like new tech, and he's kind of at the forefront of a lot of cool things. Is that something that you guys discuss, or does he come home and say like, hey, I'm involved in this thing now? Or do you talk to him about that stuff, or do you kind of keep your world separate in that way?
No, we have nothing separate. We live a very healthy codependent lifestyle. We have nothing
Say with
nothing separate. He runs, I think it's something close to like $1 billion accumulative fund. So like there's like a, you know, there's a sustainability fund, there's an AI fund, there's like the other funds. So there's always companies that he's hearing about. And if he thinks there's something really cool or innovative, yeah, it's really fun to talk to him about it. You know.
Does he have a Jewish writer fund?
Yeah. It's called Alex Morgan. No. Yeah, it's his industry is fascinating. It's wonderful. I mean, you know, it's great.
I love it because he's the perfect example of like, oh, he's more than a pretty face. Because he's like, he could have easily just been like a Hollywood, you know, handsome guy, you know, vapid, nothing, but he does all this cool stuff. So I think
Clearly
that's awesome.
When he's
smart.
on Shark Tank and you see him spending money, are you like, not on that, please? Or are you
No,
like,
I made
get
him
that?
go on
Why
Shark
you
Tank.
took the role?
Did you?
Yeah, because I was pregnant and I was watching Shark Tank on Friday nights, and I was like, I was like,
I
It's
love
the best
that show.
thing.
I
It's the
love that
best thing.
show.
no. So then we had our kiddo, and I was like, babe, please go on Shark Tank for me. He's like, I'm not going on Shark Tank. And I was like, please, 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 please. I love the show so much. And so he was like, fine. Like, honestly, he was like, I'll go on Shark Tank. And I was like, yay! And so,
So
my
cute.
daughter at the time was 7 months old. And then we went with him to the taping. They, you know, they shot it all in one day. But we went, and I was like, it was all for me. It was all
Oh.
for
That's
me.
so romantic.
That's sweet of him. Now,
love
speaking of that, let's just giggle here for a minute. Do you remember Seth's appearance on Shark Tank?
No, I didn't even know. No.
I'll send you a link.
Goldie does. Yeah, no.
Is it great?
Seth was on Shark Tank because I think he got, I think it was A Million Ways to Die in the West. There was a horse wrangler on A Million Ways to Die in the West who, you know, Seth had to learn how to be comfortable on a horse or with horses. So he developed a relationship with this guy who was the horse wrangler. And suddenly this horse wrangler guy starts talking to him about his product idea, which was, Goldie, correct me on the specifics of this. It was like something to do with like trapping horse
It was a
poop.
paper cone to put over horse manure so that flies won't get on the manure. But of course, the sharks then pointed out, like, you could just pick up the manure and then you won't have any flies. And also, like, most people aren't dealing with just like loose manure as a, you know, like the scalability of it didn't seem to be great.
But the guy dragged Seth, like got Seth to agree somehow
Yeah.
to be on the show with him, dragged Seth out onto the show. And there was that awkward moment because Seth is famous primarily for his voices, especially at this point, where you bring Seth out and everyone's, theoretically going to be like, oh my God, it's Seth MacFarlane. But you could tell the sharks didn't really know who he was.
They're like, why are you
and then
here?
he kind of had to do like a little tap dance, like with a Stewie voice until finally they were like, oh, okay. What's this product?
Like one of the people that was giving money,
No,
he was pushing the product.
He was pushing the product.
Oh my God,
you
you
gotta
need to watch this.
I'll send it. I'll send it.
Yeah, JC, send her the link to that because it was really worth watching. That was fun. All right, so cool. And you guys recently, I don't know if it's recent anymore, within the last couple of years, built this really cool house in Hollywood that I'm hearing all about sustainability and all this kind of stuff. So tell me a little bit about how that happened.
Our third child was conceived 9 years ago and was born 4 years ago.
Oh.
Yep. So Ashton, many moons ago, bought a piece of land in Los Angeles. Probably 20 years ago, he bought a really large piece of land in LA.
Smart.
Again, proving he's smart.
I got pregnant, and we were living at the time in like a house that's like a death trap. It would almost killed our dogs, and it was definitely going to kill a baby.
Was it like mold?
No, just
dangerous.
Very dangerous house. It was like the stairs were like these floating stairs, like things. It's just wasn't meant for smaller objects.
Right.
And I was like, we can't raise a child in this house. This is not safe. So we're like, okay, let's look at houses. We should move. And what happened was, I think two actors being together just draws a lot more attention than if it's just like one actor and then one, right, like non-actor person, right? Like a person that has another job.
Yeah.
Him and I together was not fun in the real world. Like we all of a sudden it was just not safe. So we started looking at houses. They had to be a gate behind a gate behind a gate because it was just too much. They're like stalkers and crazy people. It became wild.
Yeah.
So we were like, where do we go? We ultimately decided, let's just build. What's the worst that can happen? I was pregnant. We hired our architect. We started the whole process. My daughter now is almost 9, and we moved in October of 2019.
Wow.
Wow.
And we built our dream house. We had the greatest time building it, designing it. It was exactly as we want to live our life, which is isolated, away from other people, and for our kids and our family.
Oh.
And then COVID hit. Yeah. And so we have now really lived this house. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone expects to, like, I'm not complaining. I love my house. Yeah. But we have lived it. It's extraordinary. Yes, it's as sustainable as any house can possibly be. We have a well. We have fields. We grow, not well, because I'm not like the best at a green thumb, but I try to be. So I have like trees, fruit trees. I have tomatoes, strawberries, blueberries. We have tons of fruit. We are growing corn, sunflowers, as much off the grid as possible.
Amazing.
That's animals. So cool.
We have personal animals. We have 2 dogs and 2 birds. And then our wildlife is foxes, mountain lions, bobcats, and bunnies, and coyotes and deer.
Oh, wow. Bunnies beware.
I know.
That crew.
I know. Yeah. Somehow they have survived. And
they're fast.
Yeah, but so is the fox. Yeah. So also I didn't know there were foxes. I'm not going to lie. And the fox was only detected about 4 or 5 months ago. My daughter was sitting where I'm sitting now. And I just hear, Mom! And I thought something happened. And I turned around and she comes running and she's like, that's a fox. And I was like, we don't have foxes, honey. It was a fox.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like, honestly, to complete it in October 2019, now in retrospect, is great timing because to be in that for COVID seems like making the best of a bad situation.
Never left. Honestly, we had it was unbelievable. It was like the craziest of timings. Truthfully, the craziest, because 4 months later, the world shut down.
Yeah. Well, we're back at it now. Well, Mila, we have kept you for quite a while here. We so appreciate you coming to do this. Yeah. We love working with you, and we love talking to you today even more. So,
Alec,
thank you so much.
And be this nice to me next time I record. Can you say all these? JC, just record this and then play back at our next record. Okay.
I'll have it ready. Queued up.
Mila, you're portraying like I'm some kind of a monster. We have our little back and forth when you record. That's all it is. No, you're the best, Mila. Thank you so much for doing this.
Guys, thanks for having me
Yeah,
on. This
thank
was
you.
so delightful. I feel like
Oh,
all
yeah.
I
Awesome.
I'm so sorry if I talk too much. I apologize if I like.
No.
We loved
That's
it.
why the guest is here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Talk.
right.
Yeah.
We want you to chit chat.
This was
Yeah.
awesome.
I'll
All right.
come back
I
anytime.
mean, that's why you come on Kissing Ass with Alex Sulkin.
Wait, she said we might have got drowned out that she'd come back anytime. So we'll see you here next week. Mila Kunis is now the fourth member of this
Co-host.
podcast.
I don't have a job. There's a writer's strike, so I'm available. When are you available? I was like, Monday.
She was literally like,
I
what
know.
about Monday? I was like, oh, shit.
That was awesome. We love that.
Yeah, it was
Instant
awesome.
gratification.
It was really great.
Mila, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Wasn't Mila great? Oh, God,
Yes.
we love her. Thank
Yes.
you, Mila,
So
for doing this.
amazing.
Oh, she did not have to, even though I twisted her arm very hard. All right. Well, let's get into the part of the show that we like to call Top 5. Top 5. Oh, boy. This is great. And now, JC, I know this wasn't your topic, but do you want to kick us off first?
Sure.
Since that would be the order we'd be in. Tell us
Sure.
what we're top 5-ing about.
So John Viner, who was asked to be a part of last week's podcast, gave us the
Yes.
topic, top 5 Johns of all
Love it.
time.
Love it.
Okay, so my number 5 is John Cho, the actor.
Okay.
Big fan,
Yeah.
and
he's in Harold and Kumar, right?
yes, he's
Yeah.
yes. Number 4, John Coltrane.
Ooh. Cool. Somebody's cool. Somebody's cool.
Edgy. Okay, number 3. I have a feeling this is going to be some overlap, perhaps. John Candy.
Oh, yeah. Boy, this
Yep.
was a tough list. Tough list.
Number 2 for me, he's written my favorite book of all time, John Steinbeck.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes.
Wow.
What's the book? What's the book?
East of Eden.
Oh, yeah. So you like one of the bigger ones. See, I like the Red Pony. It was like this thin.
oh, yeah,
I'm like,
well-
read that over the summer. No problem.
You're like, I got it. I got it.
Got it. Of Mice and Men, also very
That's
short.
short. That's a short boy.
Yeah.
And my number 1, John Lennon.
Yeah. Yes. Excellent.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you. Thank you.
Here are my Johns.
John.
Goldy, I thought about putting you on here, and that's the truth.
Nah.
You're the number one John on this podcast for
True.
sure.
Facts.
All right, number 5 for me was Mr. John Williams.
Oh, scores.
I mean, just getting carried out of ET. Oh, yeah. John Williams was a big part of that.
Totally.
The sobbing. Number 4 for me personally was a very tall man, Mr. John Cleese.
Nice.
I think he's
Nice.
hilarious, done so many funny things. And as referenced earlier in this podcast, number 3 for me, John Kennedy.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
Yep.
you do live in the Cape.
Yeah, we're right here in Kennedy country, even though it's turning red by the day. Number 2 for me was Mr. John Lennon.
Oh.
So one away, John Lennon. And number 1, how could this podcast? Ed, have you heard of this man? Maybe Johnny Carson was number 1 for me.
Nice.
Those are my 5 Johns.
Great
And
Wow.
now, John, you take it away.
Okay. Well, number 5 is a man who single-handedly put this podcast on his back, John Mulaney.
Ooh, I thought of him.
God damn you.
Yeah. But don't get too excited, Mr. Mulaney, because number 4 is John Lovitz.
Oh, wait. That's the ticket? How did you even come to, did you used to love him on SNL?
I just think he's really funny.
Yeah.
He is
Every
funny.
time I see him, I'm laughing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's,
funny.
he's bald, so and the
I
tiebreaker
forgot.
with Mulaney, I got to go with the bald guy. I have to. I have to. It's the only break he's going to get. Number 3, Johnny Cash.
Ooh,
Oh,
very.
good one.
very
Yeah.
Good one.
Yes.
Columbo.
Number 2, John Glenn.
Oh,
Nice.
Hero.
Number
Yes.
1, who could it be? A lot of good candidates.
Yes.
Number 1, John F. Kennedy.
Ooh.
Wait, Junior.
No. Why?
I once saw him in the New York City subway,
Handsome.
and literally all the noise went away, everything stopped. And it was like a Greek god was among us. It was one of the most formative moments of my life.
Oh, wow.
Can I use an 80s expression?
Sure.
Did you cream your jeans?
Oh, God. God.
I was definitely playing some pocket pool.
Yeah, you had a friggin' pocket rock. Oh, I love that. Okay, those are great lists. And
That's a
Goldy,
great
what do we
list.
have next week?
Okay, next week, the top 5 songs by a band, singer, or musician that you otherwise don't like.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
that's great. Very creative. I love it.
Yeah.
And good for
That's
you.
how you do a song
Good for you
category,
getting
guys.
in
You
the
don't just go
song
top
game.
5 Seeger.
Yeah. By the way, I'm still, and you're right about that, but I'm still pissed at myself from the Bob Seger one because I meant to get in one of my jokes, which is that Bob's female fans have to be called the Seeger Beavers.
Gross.
I've been sitting on it for 2 weeks.
And you forgot.
I forgot.
That's where that joke belonged, under your butt.
Under my butt. All right, that'll be fun
That's really
next
great.
week. And now let's end the show as we do every week on a high note. Oh, Tom and Max, thank you for your long la. I'll go first. Levy had her dance recital last week, and she's been doing this dance program for a couple of years now, and each year they have a recital. And this year there was just a marked difference. She was so into it. And she's not someone who, when we watch her do things like play soccer or anything like that, where she just doesn't seem particularly into it a lot. But this dance thing, she was, as the kids used to say, fierce. She
She's
was really
fierce.
kind of like going for it. And
That's
it had the
awesome.
whole Guffman thing of a small town thing with
Yeah.
the woman who put on the show. And it's like, it's not about me, it's about the kids. And then she put herself in like 6 dance numbers.
What?
So it had that whole
weird.
thing going at the same time. But I was very proud of Levy, and I think she did an awesome job.
Yay.
Nice.
That's very
Nice.
nice. Goldie, you go.
So, I guess mine would be that, you have kids, and then just for a while, like, everything is really hard. But I took my older kid and her friend to the beach this week.
Nice.
They totally ignored me.
Yes, the
I
dream.
didn't have to bring any sand toys.
Yeah.
They carried their own stuff.
Yes.
Whoa.
At one point, they asked me to leave, go get them Starbucks, and come back. I didn't do it.
But they.
But the fact was, I was able to go out with them
right.
and not have to like monitor everything. They went to the bathroom by themselves. And so I'm finally getting to the stage of life where I've taught a person enough that we can go out in public and I can just completely sit there like a lazy piece of shit for
Right.
an
That's
hour.
the dream.
That's
You're living the
relaxing.
dream. That's
True
awesome.
relaxation.
Great high note.
That was a great high note. Okay, so my high note is maybe a 2-parter, but the same thing. You know, Scully, Aaron, and obviously John Viner were amazing to work with, but Scully in particular was amazing. Like
Yes.
just talking to him on almost a daily basis, working with him. You know, he's an amazing human being. You guys know.
love him.
Yes, this is where, as Aaron Lee would
What's
say.
he hiding?
Anyway, it was a treat. And he's an amazing guy. And this is the second part is thank you guys very much for the spa day. It's like
Oh, you were listening.
Well,
listening.
one of us is responsible, and I'll let you determine which one.
Yes, thank you very much. It's
yeah.
yeah.
It felt better than sending caviar in the mail. Here's a fish egg in an envelope. Enjoy. No, you had a great top 5 list, and it felt very pointed towards us or Stu.
Stu
So,
for
you
sure.
know,
I didn't mean to, but it's how it happened.
that was great. Great.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get out of here, but just want to remind you listeners, or not even remind you, tell you folks, that next week we're very excited. We have Barstool's Kevin Clancy, a.k.a. KFC, is going to be here on the program. He's absolutely like one of the Avengers, one of the original founding members of that company that has gotten huge And I have been following Barstool for a long time. I find it entertaining. I feel like it kind of has this right-wing all boys sort of undercurrent, which I don't love. But by the way, neither does he. So we'll talk to him about that next week. We're excited to talk to KFC. I want to thank Mila Kunis for being so generous with her time. I want to thank all of you for listening and you two for being awesome.
Thank
we
you.
will talk to you again next week.
Next week.
Actually,
That was fun.
And it stops right now.